Greetings and salutations, my sick movie spectators. Sugar Pants here with another stomach-turning tale from the celluloid cellar. The 1977 furniture fright fest, Deathbed, the bed that eats. Now, you may have first heard about this one from Patton Oswalt. I know I did.
Deathbed, the bed that eats people. And it's about a bed that's evil and it eats people. That's the whole movie.
And while this movie is really bad, at least it has the decency to be upfront about it. Not only does the title tell you exactly what this movie is about, it also lets you know the quality. So let's get to the sleaze docket to see what's in store for you. We have approximately 19 digested humans, 11 cups blood, 720 gallons of stomach acid, 10 naked breasts, 1 naked butt, apple digestion, wine digestion, off-brand KFC bucket of chicken digestion, fly digestion, Pepto-Bismol digestion, forearm digestion, gratuitous eyeball rolling, gratuitous circus music, gratuitous crawling on semi-digested legs, cockroach and caterpillar guacamole, necklace throat sawing, wrapped sheet tentacle attack, skeletal hand amputation, demonic exorcism, 1 porno-reading granny, 1 vibrating religious orgy, and 1 outfit made entirely out of denim. And with a docket like that, you'd think this would be the greatest movie ever made. But keep those expectations low, folks, because this one may hurt a little. We start by nauseating the entire audience by playing the audio recording of a gorilla eating a log cabin for 52 seconds. Ugh, seriously. If you thought listening to someone smack and chew their way through a pastrami on rye while sitting next to you on the subway was bad, this movie might just be the scariest thing you'll ever see. In possibly the most clever part of this movie, the director breaks up the chapters as separate meals. I say it's the most clever, but it's also one of the only clever parts. After tracking across the property, we find out the movie's narrator has been trapped inside his own painting since his death 60 years ago. Don't expect a reasonable explanation for why this is, but you'll get some kind of answer later on. A couple approaches the property, and the jerk boyfriend can't even bother closing the gate behind him. That's the thing about trespassers, too goddamn good to respect people's property. The girl says she's scared, and the guy uses about 20 tired lines to keep her from leaving. Easy there, Weinstein. No means no. Suddenly, the bed begins laughing and starts screwing with the locks of the house. By the way, if you're curious what the bed's abilities are, it's basically whatever the plot requires. It's kind of like if Captain Marvel was an end table. And about the same emotional range. So Creepy Guy immediately starts pawing the girl, but she's more interested in dinner, which on this date is an off-brand KFC bucket and a couple of apples with a bottle of wine. Ladies, I gotta ask, if your partner took you on a date that included breaking and entering as well as a shabby chicken and apple picnic on a stranger's bed, how long you gonna stick around in that relationship? While the couple makes out, the starving bed starts absorbing the picnic into its acidic guts. Once it's had its appetizer, the bed goes in for the main course, human flesh. The narrator begins talking about the bed and its actions, how it spends time sleeping, and how it hasn't eaten in years. And without a food source, the bed begins to take its hunger out on the house itself until only a single cellar remains on the property. And we're already on to lunch 13 minutes after breakfast. I didn't realize we were filming at Marlon Brando's house. Here we meet Diane, who is driving to the bed's property. She says it used to belong to a gangster who mysteriously disappeared. A lawyer friend of hers is liquidating the state's assets and says she should go and use the place. So she goes with a couple of friends, Susan and Sharon, just to get away from it all for a while. But when they get to the address, they can't find the building. Susan immediately feels sick, as if something is wrong. During the ride up, she thinks about telling the others to turn around and go back home, but she stays silent because she invited herself along and doesn't really know the other two. The three wander around the property looking for any kind of house. They find a cemetery with dilapidated headstones, and the camera pans underground to find the oddly fresh-looking corpse buried there. Finally, the girls find the cellar, and the bed opens the door for them. Fun fact, in the 70s, there was actually a law that every door in a horror movie had to be the creakiest motherfucker ever. Going into the cellar, the girls act like this giant bed makes the place the Ritz-Carlton or something. Seriously, the 70s must have been a terrible time to live. Drive up to what you thought was going to be a large estate, only to find a musty old basement with the world's largest bed. And you're actually happy about that? The man trapped in the painting watches helplessly as the girls wander about. He then comments about how the bed is bleeding because of Sharon, but he doesn't know why. Diane and Sharon go off to explore, while Susan stays behind to take a nap. We are then treated to the sound of the bed bubbling and panting while she strips down to change into her pajamas. Then, without any warning, we cut to this amazing shot. The only dialogue clue given here is little sister, so we're left to assume he's talking about one of the girls at the cellar. And since it's 1977, I'm just going to throw out a wild guess and say he's not talking about Diane. We just weren't that progressive yet. Cut back to Susan taking a nap, and we learn the bed also has the power to give its victims nightmares. I gotta say, I've seen a lot of gross horror movies. This dish is way up there on the nauseation scale. It's not enough to watch the live cockroaches and caterpillars squirm around in the guacamole. We gotta watch the girl take a bite. And I can guarantee you this movie didn't have the budget nor technological ability to have an animatronic bug. The best animatronics we had in 1977 was Jasper T. Jowls. So that means that poor girl actually had to put that caterpillar in her mouth. So with the nighttime in full swing, the bed decides it's time to eat. He strips off her clothes and begins with a nice rose salad, then in an interesting move, swallows her pendant and begins sawing her neck with a chain. I guess since it's been so long since his last meal, he's got to play with his food first. Finally, she begins to sink into the sludge, and we get to watch as she swims around in the bed's digestive juices until she's skeletonized and deposited somewhere in the property's grounds along with the flowers, now stained red by her blood. I assume the director thought this was going to be some deep artistic expression. Sharon brings in some firewood and notices no one's in the bed. She goes out to have a picnic with Diane, and they just pass off Susan's disappearance. Real nice, ladies. Enjoy that gross meat spread, sweaty cheese and pickles and wine that have been sitting in a hot car for several hours. Meanwhile, the bed sucks down Susan's purse to find a bottle of Pepto-Bismol because Sharon makes him bleed again.
Somewhere, someplace, sometime, something deep inside you will make you say, indigestion.
I'm really starting to think that this whole damn movie is just a bunch of random thoughts from the director held together by the flimsiest narrative imaginable. And that's just unacceptable. The narrator takes his time to look over the rings he's acquired from the bed's past victims and remember who they were, including a priest, an old lesbian grandma, an implied child, and a handicapped girl. We then take a good portion of time to visit a sex doctor using the bed to scam impotent idiots out of their cash. Now, you would think that this would have been the perfect opportunity to show a lot of skin. But the most explicit thing we're going to get is a close-up of this guy's bulge and the awful circus music they chose for this scene. I swear to you people, I did not edit this part. Eventually, a religious revival buys a session to hold an orgy, and that's when the bed decides to strike. The narrator says this feast was so much for the bed that it fell asleep for several weeks. During that slumber, a new owner of the property moves it to the cellar, which kept it from eating for quite some time. And that takes us to the gangster who was mentioned at the beginning as the last owner of the house before the bed began destroying the property. The bed screws with the playing cards because that's also on its list of unlimited powers, and we find out that bullets don't harm the bed. But I think the sound effects guy forgot to put in a few gunshots here.
Oh, Mudamas. Oh, I'm being eaten alive.
At last, we come to the narrator's story. He's an artist, dying of tuberculosis, and decides to spend his last days at the castle. During his stay, he draws the bed in which he plans on dying. The bed eats him and traps his soul within the drawing. Again, the bed can do whatever it wants, whenever it wants, except in instances where it can't. The narrator's final flashback is of a demon who falls in love with a young woman. He creates a bed for the girl and takes human form to seduce her, making love to her, kills her, and in his grief, he cries tears of blood which spill onto the bed, and that's all it takes to become trapped inside a piece of furniture. Now imagine the movie we could have had if the demon was like any one of us mortal humans and cried in the bathroom. Once every 10 years, the demon sleeps, and in that sleep he is weakened enough to be killed, and the narrator can talk beyond his painting. The rest of the girl's family was eaten by the bed, and the girl who started it all can never rot away. And apparently Sharon's eyes reminded of the girl he fell in love with, which is why it bleeds whenever she is near. Diane and Sharon suddenly get worried and start looking for Susan. Sharon takes the car into town to look while Diane stays behind. And as we've already seen, splitting up is a great idea. Diane goes into the cellar to start a fire in the wooden fireplace? Dinner! Finally! Christ! Breakfast to lunch took 13 minutes. Lunch to dinner was more than twice that. I swear to God, if it takes double that to get to dessert, I'm gonna fucking kill somebody. Sharon's car breaks down and she leaves the left blinker on. She also leaves the hood up so any thieves can come and part out the engine. Hey, thanks for the catalytic converter, Sharon! Back at the cellar, the narrator gets super excited when Diane lights up a cigarette. And we don't have to worry about the bed eating her. She's gonna fall asleep with a lit cigarette and burn the whole fucking cellar down. But since she's asleep, the bed gives her a nightmare. Again, why does it do this instead of just eating her? And to that I say, logic left this party long ago. In the dream, Diane finds Susan reading a book of dead people, and she says they're both in it. The book bursts into flame, and suddenly the pages become mirrors. Phantom Diane stands up naked, because that adds so much to the plot here and was totally necessary. And real Diane wakes up just in time to be eaten. She falls in waist deep and the bed splashes red paint on her jeans as she pulls herself free. I'm going to spare you from sitting through this next part, but the next segment is the most excruciating film padding I've ever seen. From the moment Diane hits the floor, we are subjected to 2 minutes and 43 seconds of Diane moaning like a constipated goat as she crawls across the floor, up the stairs, and out the cellar door. And the sadistic fucking bed waits until she is almost completely outside before he shows us he can use his sheets like a tentacle to grab her and pull her back in. Apparently this demon's really into hentai. Then he takes his sweet-ass time dragging her all the fucking way back to the bed. Sharon gets back just in time to see Diane pulled into the bed and devoured. I gotta say, she's handling this very well. No screaming or any emotion at all. But at least the narrator finally got a smoke from it, which was kind of a nice gesture from the evil, demonically possessed bed, now that I think about it. Sharon's brother finds her car on the road and doesn't bother shutting the hood or turning off the turn signal. Seriously, everyone talks about the gas crises in the 70s, but no one talks about how we could afford to just abandon cars so willy-nilly. The bed tries tormenting Sharon by slamming creaky doors and drumming Diane's heartbeat, which is kind of a pretty twisted Edgar Allan Poe move. Sharon's brother runs over the bag she left on the road, which points him to the exact direction he needs to go somehow. Sharon's emotionally checked out, and the bed continues his torment by rolling one of Diane's eyes all over the bed. Now, I don't know what's going on with the brother, but he seems awfully cavalier about this. He just went to look for his sister and immediately is watching an eyeball rolling around on a bed. I've had more energetic reactions going on my lunch break to find out some asshole has eaten my sandwich. The bed locks the two in the cellar, and the brother tries to figure out how to get out. Without any explanation as to what's going on, he immediately gets the idea of stabbing the bed, which yanks his arms in and chows down on them like a Midwesterner does to a Renaissance Festival turkey leg. Finally, the brother pulls free and we get this James Cameron level effect.
Oh my goodness! You have bony hands.
Brother has had a nice long time for rational thinking and decides Sharon has to snap off those hands completely. And since you don't want those nasty old bones just lying around, chuck them into the fire. The fragrance will make you forget all about the furniture that wants to eat you. Speaking of, why doesn't the bed use its tentacle sheets now that they're trapped in the cellar with it? The only thing I can think of is it's about to go to sleep and wants to keep a snack for later. The narrator confirms that the bed is indeed taking its once-a-decade nap, so it's his one chance to speak beyond the painting. He calls Sharon over to him to explain what she must do to end this nightmare. Unfortunately, now that she's already started, the narrator pulls some bullshit switcheroo and tells Sharon she won't survive the ritual. Her death will let the original girl rise from the grave and finish the job. The girl takes the brother to the circle and, I guess, has sex with him? Suddenly the bed bursts into flames, the narrator is freed from his prison, and the movie just kind of peters out. So there you have it, Deathbed, the bed that eats. I'm not gonna lie, this one's a tough movie to sit through. But it's one of those movies that once you hear about, you just have to see for yourself. It's like a car crash. You know it's gonna be bad, and you know you shouldn't look, but deep down you know you just can't look away. George Barry, the writer, director, and producer, never did anything other than this movie. But damn it, he did this project, and it's a lot more than we can say for a lot of people. And it only cost him $30,000. With inflation, that would cost about $130,000 today. Compare that to a thoroughly unwatchable piece of shit like Geely, which cost the studio $77 million in adjusted dollars, and you can just see how expensive a modern piece of shit can cost. So good job, Georgie boy. Most of the cast of this movie did very little other than this film. In fact, about 56% of the entire cast and crew have Deathbed as their sole credit to their name. The most obvious exception to this is William Huss, who played Sharon's brother and has 138 acting credits, including The Dukes of Hazzard, V, Miami Vice, St. Elsewhere, American History X, and Ally McBeal. But he's probably most well known as playing the father, Alan Matthews, on Boy Meets World. Jock Brandis, who played the priest for all of 25 seconds here, has gone on to have 35 gaffer credits to his name. Not only was he gaffer for Deathbed, but he would also be the same for Scanners, Deadly Eyes, Videodrome, The Dead Zone, Sesame Street's Follow That Bird, Maximum Overdrive, 1988's The Blob, one of my personal favorites, Fright Night Part 2, and Little Monsters, another one of my personal favorites. What exactly does a gaffer do? Well, more or less they're the lead electrician on the set, mostly responsible for the lighting. So if you ever watch a movie and you can't see shit, make sure you blame the gaffer. I'm looking at you, Edison Jackson, Danny Navarrete, and Roger Sasson. I don't know which one of you was most responsible, but the 2009 Friday the 13th was so fucking dark I have to turn my TV's brightness all the way to its highest setting just to see anything. So fuck you. Not really, you guys are doing great. And believe it or not, this movie even got a reboot/remake in 2002, starring Joe Estevez.
Does anything really star Joe Estevez? Isn't that kind of an oxymoron?
Some kind of moron.
I haven't seen it, but I figure I've seen enough carnivorous furniture movies for now. Maybe if I get really desperate, I'll give the new one a look. But considering the movies I watch, I doubt I'll ever get that desperate. So until I greet you again for the next sloppy cinematic selection, this is your old pal Sugar Pants. See you in your dreams.
That place looks clean for having been abandoned so long. I hope there's not a maniac around.